Coming to the next body, that is National Commission for Women. The National Commission for Women is the apex statutory body in India established to protect and promote the interests of women. First, organizational structure. Number 1, Chairperson. A person committed to the cause of women, nominated by the central government. Number 2, 5 members. Experts in law, management, administration, or social welfare. At least one must be from SC and ST communities. Number 3, Member Secretary. An expert in management or an officer from the civil service slash All India service nominated by the center. Number 4, the chairperson and every member hold office for a period not exceeding 3 years. Coming to the major powers and functions. Number 1, review constitutional and legal safeguards for women and recommend remedial legislative measures to the government. Example, proposed amendments to the Dowry Prohibition Act. Number 2, receiving and processing complaints related to deprivation of women's rights and non-implementation of protective laws. Number 3, suo motu cognizance. Can take independent notice of issues involving women's rights violation based on media reports or other sources. Number 4, civil court powers. Authorized to summon witness, require document discovery, and receive evidence on affidavits during inquiries. Number 5, jail inspections. They can inspect jails, remand homes, or other places of custody for women to ensure humane treatment and reforms. Number 6, research and studies. Commissions studies into socio-economic conditions of women to identify and remove factors inhibiting their advancement. Number 7, advises the union and state government on the planning process of the socio-economic development of women. Number 8, report submission. Mandated to submit annual and special reports to the government regarding the status of women's rights. Number 9, Mahila Jan Sunwai, a pilot project to facilitate speedy disposal of complaints via in-person and online hearing. Coming to the significance of National Commission for Women. Number 1, watchdog of rights. That is, it monitors safeguards. Example, POSH Act implementation in corporate office. Number 2, legal catalyst. It influenced the Triple Talaq campaign and subsequent legislation in 2019. Number 3, grassroots advocacy. That is, She is a Change Maker initiative. Number 4, international interface. It represents India at UN Women Forums to align domestic policies with global gender standards. Number 5, safety audits. Example, Shimla Consultation 2026 for safer university environments. Number 6, economic empowerment. Example, Digital Shakti 4.0 reaching 6 lakh women. Coming to the major challenges and limitations. Number 1, recommendatory nature. Its findings are not legally binding. Second, no punitive power. Can only recommend prosecution to the government or police. Number 3, financial dependence on the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Limits functional autonomy. Number 4, staffing vacancies. Shortages of permanent investigative staff leads to a heavy reliance on deputation from other government departments. Number 5, political interference. The chairperson and members are government nominees, leading to frequent allegations of partisan functioning or selective activism. Number 6, limited awareness. Women in remote rural areas remain unaware of its existence. Only 15% of the complaints in 2025 were from rural belts. Number 7, no constitutional status. That is, being a statutory body, it lacks the prestige and protected independence of constitutional bodies like the CAG. Number 8, Underreporting. Socio-cultural stigmas continue to prevent women from utilizing National Commission for Women's portal for domestic violence reporting. Number 9. Resource constraints. Inadequate budgets for conducting large-scale national-level research projects or independent forensic investigations. Coming to the major case studies, Ramsri case. NCW successfully intervened in the Supreme Court to stay and later commute the death sentence of a woman. Number 2. It played a significant role in strengthening Domestic Violence Act 2005 and the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. Third case study. It has prepared gender profiles to assess the status of women and their empowerment in all the state. Number 4. Manipur Incident 2023 faced heavy criticism for delayed response to complaints regarding violence against women during ethnic clashes. Fifth, Mangalore pub attack. Members' victim blaming remark during the inquiry was criticized. Number 6. Section 497 debate. Its initial stance on adultery laws was criticized for being non-aligned with modern principles of gender neutrality compatibility. Culpability. Coming to the way forward, number 1. Constitutional status should be given to ensure absolute independence from executive influence. Number 2. Amend the 1990 Act to make its recommendations binding, subject to a reasoned memorandum for rejection. Number 3. Empower the Commission to initiate contempt proceeding against officials who ignore its summons or directives. Number 4. Include the CJI and leader of opposition in the selection committee to ensure neutral appointments. Number 5. Adopt the UK's Equality and Human Rights Commission model with powers to issue legally enforceable compliance notices. Number 6. Appoint district vigilance officers to provide a direct link for rural women to report atrocities. Number 7. Social audits. Mandate annual third-party social audit of the Commission's performance to ensure accountability to civil society. Coming to the next body, that is National Commission for Minorities. The NCM is a statutory body established to safeguard the interests of religious minorities in India. Origin. Number 1. Originally set up in 1978 via a Ministry of Home Affairs resolution as a non-statutory body. Second, became a statutory body under the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. Number 3. Jurisdiction initially included linguistic minorities but shifted solely to religious minorities in 1988 after the creation of the Special Officer for Linguistic Minorities. Coming to the organizational structure. Number 1. Composition. It consists of a chairperson, a vice chairperson and 5 members, all nominated by the central government. Number 2. Mandated that at least 5 members, including the chairperson, must belong to the 6 notified minority communities. Number 3. The chairperson and every member hold office for a term of 3 years from the date they assume office. Coming to the major power and functions. Number 1. Evaluation of progress. Evaluates the progress of development of various minority communities under the union and state governments. Number 2. Monitors the working of safeguards provided in Constitution and other laws enacted by Parliament or states. Number 3. Complaint redressal. Example, acted on 1500 plus complaints in 2024-25 involving police atrocities, service matters and religious property encroachments. Number 4. Suo motu action. Empowered to take notice of incidents affecting minority rights based on media reports or verified private petitions. Number 5. Civil court powers. Holds power of the civil court to summon witness, receive evidence on affidavit, and requisition public record, Section 9. Number 6. Policy recommendation. Example: recommended the classical language status for Pali and Prakrit. Number 7. Conducting studies. Commissions studies, research and analysis on issues relating to the socio-economic and educational development of minorities. Number 8. Special reports. Prepares and submits periodic or special reports to the central government on any matter pertaining to minorities. Example: Special Report on Hate Speech, 2025. Coming to the significance of NCM. Number 1. Safeguarding secularism. It acts as a constitutional buffer. Number 2. Quasi-judicial relief. It provides a platform for grievance redressal. Number 3. Ensures compliance with UN Declaration on Minority Rights 1992 regarding cultural and religious identity. Number 4. Empowering weaker sections. That is monitors scholarship. Number 5. Communal harmony. Facilitates interfaith dialogue. Example: Unity Conferences 2025. Next, major challenges and limitations. Number 1. Advisory nature. Recommendations are non-binding. Number 2. No constitutional status. Lacks the autonomy and prestige of the NCSC or NCST. Number 3. Persistent vacancy in key posts like chairperson members often leave the commission non-functional for several months. Number 4. Lacks its own permanent investigative cadre, forcing it to rely on state police for field inquiry reports. Number 5. Annual reports are tabled with significant delays in Parliament, reducing legislative oversight relevance. Number 6. Toothless tiger perception. Former chairpersons have termed it a showpiece due to its inability to enforce penalty orders or compensation. Number 7. Overlapping jurisdiction. Jurisdictional overlaps with NHRC often lead to procedural confusion and bouncing of victims between institutions. Coming to the way forward. Number 1. Constitutional status. Number 2. Binding directives. Number 3. Adopt the UK's Equality and Human Rights Commission model with powers to conduct binding statewide inquiries. Number 4. Include the CJI and leader of opposition in the selection committee to ensure political neutrality. Number 5. Introduce a central directive requiring every state to establish a functional state minority commission within 6 months. Coming to the Central Information Commission. This is the next body, CIC. The CIC is the apex statutory body established to ensure the effective implementation of the Right to Information Act 2005. Composition consists of a Chief Information Commissioner and up to 10 Information Commissioners appointed by the President. Coming to the major powers and functions. Number 1. The CIC holds the power of a civil court to summon persons and require document discovery. Number 2. Adjudication of appeals. It serves as the final appellate body for second appeals against decision of Central Public Information Officer CPIO. Number 3. Imposition of penalties. The Commission can fine officials Rs 250 per day up to 25,000 for unjustified denial of information. Number 4. Suo motu inquiries. It can initiate an inquiry into any matter where there are reasonable grounds for a transparency breach. Number 5. Recommendatory power. It can recommend disciplinary action against public officials for persistent non-compliance with provisions of the Act. Number 6. Access to all records. During an inquiry, no record of a public authority can be withheld from the Commission's scrutiny. Number 7. Directive for compliance. Empowered to direct public authorities to take necessary steps to align with the RTI Act's spirit. Number 8. Awarding compensation. The CIC has the power to award compensation to the complainant for any loss or detriment suffered. Coming to the major challenges and limitations. Number 1. While its orders are theoretically final, departments often seek writs in high courts to stay CIC directives. Number 2. Executive dominance in appointments. Prime PMHM LOP. In Anjali Bhardwaj versus Union of India 2019, the Supreme Court directed greater transparency in appointments to ensure public scrutiny. Number 3. Unlike courts, the CIC cannot punish for contempt, making it difficult to enforce compliance with its orders. Number 4. Vacancies and backlogs lead to bench vacancy and massive pile-up of pending appeals, over 22,000. Number 5. Lack of time limit. While the Act mandates 30 days for PIOs, it sets no time limit for CIC to dispose of appeals. Number 6. Record management. Inefficient physical record management in government offices leads to the unavailability of files during CIC hearings. Number 7. Autonomy concern. Amendments giving the centre power to set salaries and tenure have raised concerns about the Commission's independence. Number 8. Digital divide. Remote rural applicants struggle to access the CIC's online appeal portal, limiting its reach to urban elites. Number 9. Exemption overuse. Public authorities frequently cite national security or privacy Section 8 to bypass CIC's disclosure order. Number 10. Inadequate staffing. Example: the registry of CIC currently operates at 60% of its sanctioned technical strength. Coming to the way forward. Number 1. Amend the RTI rules to mandate a 90-day time limit for the CIC to dispose of second appeals. Number 2. Enhanced diversity. Actively recruit commissioners from diverse backgrounds including law, journalism, science and social service as per the Act. Number 3. Adopt the UK model where public interest override is strictly applied against almost all secrecy based exemption. Number 4. Grant the Commission the power to initiate contempt proceedings against officials who repeatedly defy its order. Number 5. Independent selection panel. Include a judge of the Supreme Court in the selection committee to enhance the Commission's perceived neutrality. Number 6. Implement a mechanism where penalties are automatically deducted from the salaries of erring public information officers. Number 7. Third party audits. Make the transparency audit of Section 4 disclosures a mandatory annual feature with publicly accessible grading system. Coming to the next body, that is Central Vigilance Commission. The Central Vigilance Commission (CVC) is India's apex integrity institution mandated to fight corruption and ensure transparency in the central government. Origin: it was established in 1964 via a Government of India executive resolution based on Santhanam Committee recommendations. Number 2. It was granted statutory status through the Central Vigilance Commission Act 2003 following the Supreme Court's Vineet Narayan judgment. Coming to the composition. Number 1. Central Vigilance Commissioner, that is the chairperson, and 2 Vigilance Commissioners appointed by President on recommendation of a committee comprising Prime Minister, who is the chairperson of that committee, Home Minister and Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha. Recent news. Number 1. Vigilance Awareness 2025 campaign focused on culture of integrity for nation's prosperity, promoting preventive vigilance mechanism. Number 2. Enhance the whistleblower PIDPI portal to ensure 100% anonymity for complaints. Coming to the major powers and functions. Number 1. Exercises superintendence over the functioning of the CBI, specifically for cases under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Number 2. Inquiry powers. Can inquire or cause an inquiry into any transaction where the public servant is suspected of corruption. Number 3. Advises the central government on vigilance matters and reviews the progress of investigations conducted by various agencies. Number 4. Processes the powers of a civil court while conducting inquiries, including summoning witnesses and inspecting documents. Number 5. Whistleblower protection. Acts as the designated agency to receive and act on complaints under the PID/PI resolution, that is, whistleblower protection. Number 6. Oversees the functioning of chief vigilance officers across all central ministries, PSUs, and autonomous bodies. Number 7. Monitors the progress of requests for sanction of prosecution pending with various government departments. Number 8. Conducts technical audits of infrastructure projects through its Chief Technical Examiners Organization CTEO wing. Number 9. Submits a comprehensive annual report to the President, which is subsequently laid before both houses of Parliament. Coming to the major challenges and limitations. Number 1. Advisory limitations. The government can reject them by simply providing written reasons. Number 2. Second challenges is it lacks its own independent investigative agency and must rely on CBI or departmental CVOs. Number 3. Limited jurisdiction. It cannot investigate corruption cases involving state government officials, private sector employees, or political leaders. Number 4. Staffing constraints. Operates within a sanctioned strength of roughly 300 staff, which is insufficient. Number 5. CVOs are often employees of the same department they monitor, leading to inherent conflict of interest. Number 6. No prosecution power. Unlike the Lokpal, CVC cannot initiate its own criminal prosecution in the court of law. Number 7. Selection committee is dominated by executive, raising concerns about the potential of partisan appointment. Number 8. Sanction hurdles. Despite monitoring, the prior sanction requirement for senior officials often acts as legal shield for corrupt bureaucrats. Coming to the way forward. Number 1. Independent Investigation Wing. Grant the CVC its own cadre of investigators, similar to the ICAC of Hong Kong. Number 2. Amend the CVC Act to make its recommendations legally binding in case of proven financial fraud. Number 3. Prosecutorial powers. Allow the CVC to maintain a panel of special prosecutors to directly take cases to court. Number 4. Adopt Singapore's CPIB model, where the anti-corruption agency has the power of arrest without warrant. Number 5. Digital vigilance by design. Integrate CVC oversight into the government e-marketplace for automated flagging of suspicious bidding pattern. Number 6. Expanding scope. Bring public-private partnership projects under CVC's mandatory technical audit to protect public resources. Number 7. Vigilance literacy. Launch a national integrity index to rank departments, fostering healthy competition in transparency and ethical governance. Coming to the next body, that is Central Bureau of Investigation. The CBI is India's premier federal investigating agency. Origin. Number 1. Special Police Establishment 1941, initially formed to investigate wartime corruption in the War and Supply Department during World War II. Number 2. DSPE Act 1946. Legal authority was derived from the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, making it a police agency. Number 3. MHA Resolution 1963. The CBI was formally established via a government resolution, though it is not a statutory body. Next is major powers and functions. Number 1. Anti-corruption probe. investigates bribery and misconduct by central government employees and PSU staff. Example: investigation of the 11,400 crore PNB fraud. Number 2. Economic offences handles major financial scams, bank frauds, cyber crimes, and large scale smuggling of narcotics or cultural property. Example: Satyam Computers Scam 2009. Third, power. Spatial crimes investigates sensational cases like terrorism, high profile kidnapping, and murders referred by state or the judiciary. Example: Arushi Talwar murder case. Number 4. Interpol interface. It acts as the National Central Bureau for India, facilitating communication between Indian police and international law enforcement. Number 5. State referrals. It can investigate crimes within a state if the state government requests or Supreme or High Court orders. Example: RG Kar Medical College case. Number 6. Technical support. It maintains the Central Forensic Science Laboratory (CFSL) to provide advanced scientific evidence support for complex criminal trials. Number 7. Crime statistics. Serves as the central repository for specialized crime data and disseminates criminal information to state bureaus. Coming to the challenges faced by CBI. Number 1. General consent hurdle. Over 10 states have withdrawn general consent. Number 2. Political interference. The Supreme Court criticized the CBI for being a caged parrot, speaking in its master's voice. Next, lack of statutory status. Example: the Guwahati High Court 2013 briefly declared the CBI's formation unconstitutional through the order, though the order was later stayed. Fourth, roughly 1700 posts, 23% of the sanctioned strength are vacant, leading to regressive workload, leading to excessive workloads and investigation delays. Number 5. Over reliance on IPS officers on deputation, who may lack specialized forensic or financial investigation expertise. Number 6. Prior sanction sealed. Section 17A of the PCA mandates prior approval before even starting an inquiry against senior officials. Number 7. Administrative and financial control lies with the DOPT, limiting the director's ability to modernize the agency independently. Number 8. Struggle to keep pace with dark web and cryptocurrency based money laundering due to inadequate high tech lab funding. Coming to the Bhopal gas tragedy, criticized for failures to extradite Warren Anderson and diluting charges, which led to widespread public outcry. Second, Arushi Talwar case, labeled a forensic failure by legal experts as two different CBI teams reached contradictory conclusions. Next, Bofors scandal. Decades of investigation failed to secure a single conviction. Coming to the consent of state for CBI, types of consent for states. First is general consent. CBI is not required to seek fresh permission every time it enters the state in connection with investigation or for every case. Next, state government can grant or deny consent. Section 6 of DSPE Act. Third, specific consent. CBI would have to apply for to the state government in every case. Next, coming to the major Supreme Court judgments. Number 1. Vineet Narayan case 1998. It directed a fixed 2-year tenure for director and mandated a high-powered selection committee for autonomy. Number 2. Subramaniam Swamy 2014 struck down Section 6A ruling that prior permission is not required to probe senior official in corruption cases. Number 3. Manohar Lal Sarma 2014 famously termed the agency a caged parrot and barred it from sharing probe reports with the executive. Number 4. Legislative Council UP versus Sushil Kumar 2025. ruled that constitutional courts must order CBI probes sparingly and cautiously in exceptional situations only. Coming to the way forward, number one, replace the DSPE Act with a dedicated CBI Act to grant it a clear statutory identity. Number two, FBI model USA. Adopt a model where the agency has automatic jurisdiction over federal crimes without needing state by state consent. Number three, administrative autonomy. Grant the director the power to recruit specialized lateral entries, that is, accountants, cyber expert, directly rather than relying on IPS. Number four, social audit. Implement periodic third party audits of the agency's performance to balance RTI exemptions with public accountability. Number five, the last one, transition to a 70% permanent cadre to ensure institutional memory and specialized domain expertise in financial forensics. Coming to the next body, it's Lokpal and Lokayukt. The Lokpal union level and Lokayukt state level are statutory anti-corruption ombudsman bodies designed to inquire into allegations of corruption against public functionaries and ensure clean governance. Origin. Number one, based on the ombudsman model of Sweden, terms coined by Dr. L.M. Singhvi in 1963. Second, the first Administrative Reforms Commission 1966 first officially recommended their establishment to address citizen grievances. Number 3. After 8 failed attempts since 1968, Anna Hazare movement forced the 2013 enactment. Coming to the major powers and functions. Number 1. Jurisdiction over PM. Can investigate the Prime Minister, excluding matters of national security, public order, and foreign relations. Number 2. Covers all central government employees from Group A to Group D and MPs for bribery, misconduct. Number 3. Civil court powers. Possesses the power to summon witnesses, examine documents, and receive evidence on affidavits like a civil court. Number 4. Has powers of direction and superintendence over the CBI for cases referred to it by Lokpal. Number 5. It maintains the independent inquiry wing to conduct preliminary examinations into allegations against public servants before formal investigation. Number 6. Feature, Features a dedicated prosecution wing to initiate proceedings in special court for corruption offences after investigation. Number 7. Empowered to confiscate assets and benefit obtained through corrupt practices even while legal proceedings are ongoing. Number 8. Authorized to issue directions to prevent the destruction of record during the course of preliminary inquiry. Coming to the major challenges and limitations of Lokpal. Number 1. Delay in appointment. Lokpal was institutionalized only in 2019 despite Act being passed in 2013. Several states still lack a functional Lokayukt. Number 2. Lack of suo motu power. Lokpal cannot initiate investigations on its own. It requires a formal citizen complaint to act. Third, it cannot inquire into complaints filed after 7 years from the date of alleged offence. Fourth, being purely statutory, it lacks the constitutional protection of bodies like the CAG or Election Commission. Number 5. Investigation dependency. It primarily relies on the CBI or CVC for field investigations as it lacks its own pan-India investigative cadre. Number 6. The higher judiciary, that is High Court, Supreme Court judges, is completely excluded from Lokpal's ambit, creating an accountability gap. Number 7. Anonymity restriction. Complaints must be in a prescribed format. Anonymous complaints are not entertained, deterring many whistleblowers from reporting. Number 8. State level lags. Several states have either not appointed Lokayukt or have significantly diluted their powers via state amendments. Coming to the case study of Karnataka Lokayukt, it exposed a 16,000 crore illegal mining scam leading to the resignation of the then Chief Minister. Next, dismissal on technicalities. In 2025-26, nearly 40% of complaints were dismissed for not being in the prescribed format. Coming to the major Supreme Court judgments. First, Common Cause versus Union of India 2017. It ruled that the lack of an official leader of opposition should not stall Lokpal appointments. Number 2. The Supreme Court stayed a Lokpal order that categorized High Court judges as public servant, reaffirming their immunity. Number 3. CBI versus Lokpal 2026 clarified that Lokpal's superintendence over CBI is limited to the specific case referred, not administrative control. Coming to the way forward. Number 1. Suo motu powers. Grant Lokpal the power to initiate self-directed inquiries based on credible media reports or audits. Number 2. Adopt the Swedish model where the Ombudsman has direct access to all state secret files. Number 3. Constitutional status to ensure total independence. Number 4. Establish a permanent internal investigative wing to end dependency on CBI for field evidence. Number 5. Integrate the Whistleblowers Protection Act with Lokpal to provide concrete legal and physical scrutiny to informers. Number 6. Create regional benches of Lokpal to make anti-corruption mechanism accessible to rural and remote citizens. Coming to the Competition Commission of India. The Competition Commission of India is a statutory body within the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and is responsible for enforcing the Competition Act 2002 to promote a fair and competitive business environment. Coming to the origin. Number 1. Officially formed on October 14, 2003 following the recommendation of Raghavan Committee 2000. Competition Commission of India replaced the archaic MRTP Act 1969, moving from curbing monopolies to promoting competition. Number 3. Became fully operational in May 2009. Organizational structure. Number 1. It consists of a chairperson and not less than 2 and not more than 6 members. Number 2. The central government appoints members based on the recommendation of a search-cum-selection committee. Number 3. Members must have 15 years of experience in international trade, economics, law, or public affairs. Number 4. It includes the Director General Wing, which acts as the independent investigative arm for the Commission. Coming to the major powers and functions. Number 1. Anti-competitive agreements. Prohibiting horizontal cartels and vertical agreements that cause an appreciable adverse effect on competition. AAEC. Number 2. Preventing abuse of dominance. Example, penalized Google for leveraging its Android dominance to force install its search app on smartphones. Number 3. Combination regulation. Reviews mergers and acquisitions exceeding specific threshold to prevent monopolistic market consolidation. Example, Air India Vistara merger. Number 4. Suo motu power. It can initiate inquiries independently based on market reports without waiting for a formal complaint. Number 5. Civil court power. It possesses power of a civil court to summon witnesses and compel the production of documents. Number 6. Territorial reach. It can inquire into conduct outside India if it has a direct effect on Indian market. Example, investigated global shipping lines for price fixing in 2024. Number 7. Interim orders. Authorized to issue cease and desist orders to halt anti-competitive behavior while an investigation is pending. Number 8. Mandated to create public awareness and provide training to stakeholders on competition-related economic issues. Number 9. Consults with other regulators like TRAI or RBI to ensure harmony between sectoral laws and competition laws. Number 10. It can impose fines up to 10% of global turnover for anti-competitive conduct or jumping. Coming to the significance of Competition Commission of India. Number 1. Consumer welfare. It ensures lower prices and better equality. Number 2. Promoting innovation. It prevents incumbents from blocking new entrants. Number 3. Curbing cartels and ensuring fair competition. Number 4. Regulating big tech and ensuring a level playing field in the digital economy. Number 5. Ease of doing business. Transparent merger reviews through the green channel for fast track automation automated approvals. Number 6. Resource efficiency. It prevents hoarding and artificial scarcities. Number 7. Inclusive growth. Supports MSME against predatory pricing by large e-commerce entities. Number 8. Aligns Indian markets with OECD standards, attracting foreign direct investment into a fair environment. Coming to the major challenges and limitations of CCI. Number 1. High pendency. Frequent stays by High Court and NCLAT cause investigations to drag for several years. Example, tire cartel case took nearly a decade. Number 2. Overlapping jurisdiction. Frequent jurisdictional conflict with sectoral regulators like TRAI or SEBI, often over market conducts. Number 3. Resource constraints. An annual budget of rupees 750 crore is small compared to the $1 trillion complaints it regulates. Number 4. Lack of benches. The central office in Delhi limits access for small businesses from southern or northeastern India. Number 5. Data access issues. It lacks the power of down rates on private cloud servers located outside Indian jurisdiction. Number 6. Bureaucratic staffing. Heavy reliance on deputation from other departments rather than having a specialized economic legal permanent cadre. Number 7. Advisory nature. Opinions given to government under competition advocacy are non-binding and often ignored in policy making. Number 8. Narrow definition. The current relevant market definition often fails to capture multi-sided platforms like social media or search. Coming to the major case studies. Successful case study. Number 1. Cement Cartel 2016. It imposed 6,300 crore fine on 11 firms for controlling supply. Number 2. Forced Google to allow third-party apps store and alternative search engine on Android devices in India. Coming to the limitations. E-commerce probe. Investigations into Amazon Flipkart have faced repeated stay orders from high courts, stalling the final verdict. Second, Coal India case. It faced significant legal hurdles in applying competition law to a state monopoly. Coming to the way forward. Number 1. Digital Markets Act, that is EO model. Introduce ex ante regulations for gatekeeper firms to prevent harm before it occurs. Number 2. Establish regional benches in Mumbai, Bengaluru, and Kolkata to improve accessibility and disposal speed. Number 3. Global cooperation. It strengthened the International Competition Network (ICN) ties for simultaneous raids on multinational cartels. Number 4. Permanent cadre. Create a competition service to recruit econo- econometricians and tech experts directly rather than via deputations. Number 5. Whistleblower rewards. Implement a bounty system for employees who report corporate cartels similar to US EU practice. Number 6. Fix a mandatory 180-day limit for NCLAT to decide on appeals against CCI orders. Coming to the National Green Tribunal, this is the next body, NGT. It is a specialized judicial body established to adjudicate environmental disputes. It makes India the third country in the world after Australia and New Zealand to have a dedicated environmental tribunal. Origin. Number 1. Established under the National Green Tribunal Act 2010, replacing the NEAA. Number 2. Fulfills India's 1992 Rio Earth Summit pledge to provide judicial remedy for victims of environmental damage. Coming to the organizational structure. Number 1. Composition. It consists of a chairperson, judicial member, and expert members. Sanctioned strength is 10-20 full-time members each. Number 2. Chairperson. Appointed by the central government in consultation with CJI, must be retired Supreme Court or High Court judge. Number 3. Judicial members are retired High Court judge. Expert members must have 15 years of professional experience in environmental science. Number 4. Headquartered in New Delhi, principal bench with regional benches in Bhopal, Pune, Kolkata, and Chennai. Coming to the powers and functions, it deals with civil cases under the 7 environmental laws. These laws are the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, the Water Cess Act 1977, the Forest Act 1980, the Air Act 1981, the Environment Protection Act 1986, the Public Liability Insurance Act 1991, the Biodiversity Act 2002. Number 2. Original jurisdiction. It can hear all civil cases where a substantial question relating to environment arises. Number 3. Appellate authority. It has power to hear appeals against orders from pollution control boards and environment clearance authorities. Number 4. Grant of compensation. Power to award relief and compensation to victims of pollution or environmental accidents. Number 5. Restitution power. It can order the restoration of environment and property to their original state at the polluter's cost. Number 6. Civil court equivalence. Empowered with power under CPC 1908 for summoning, discovery, and executing its order as a decree. Number 7. Suo motu cognizance. Following the Supreme Court 2021 ruling, NGT can act on its own motion without formal complaint. Number 8. Ad interim injunction. Power to grant ex parte interim orders and stay activities to prevent immediate environmental damage. Number 9. Review power. It can review its own decisions if there is a clerical error or new discovery. Coming to the significance of NGT. Number 1. Specialized expertise. It combines judicial and technical experts. Number 2. Expeditious disposal. It mandates 6-month timeline. Number 3. Polluter accountability. Number 4. Strategic oversight. Balances development with ecology. Example, Great Nicobar project monitoring through a high-powered committee. Number 5. Reducing judicial burden. Diverts technical cases from High Court, Supreme Court. Coming to the major challenges and limitations. Number 1. Wildlife protection gap. Its jurisdiction does not include the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, leaving many poaching issues outside. Number 2. Forest right exclusion. It cannot hear cases related to scheduled tribes or Forest Rights Act 2006, limiting tribal environment justice. Number 3. Vacancy backlog. Persistent delay in appointing members often leaves regional benches non-functional for months. Number 4. Appellate hurdles. National Green Tribunal orders can be challenged in Supreme Court, often leading to long litigation stay. Number 5. Benches are located only in 5 major cities, making it inaccessible for rural environmental activists. Number 6. Critics argue that expert members are often retired IFS officers, leading to a pro-government stance. Number 7. Infrastructure deficit. Lack of advanced technical labs forces the tribunal to rely on data from pollution control boards. Coming to the major case studies. First, Almitra Patel case led to a national ban on open burning of garbage. streamlining solid waste management rule. Second number. In 2015, it banned 10-year-old diesel vehicles in Delhi. Number 3. Srinagar Dam disaster successfully enforced polluter pays principle, forcing a hydropower company to compensate disaster victims. Number 4. Yamuna floodplain art of living. Despite finding environmental damage, the 5 crore rupee fine was criticized as being too lenient. Number 5. Sterlite Copper case. The NGT order to reopen the plant was quashed by the Supreme Court, showing its vulnerability to high judiciary. Next, the last one. In the Save Mon Federation versus Union of India case 2013, the NGT suspended a 6,400 crore hydro project to save the habitat of a bird. Coming to the way forward, number 1. Expanding scope. Amend the NGT Act to include the Wildlife Protection Act and Forest Right Act. Number 2. Establish district level circuit benches to bring environmental justice to grassroots activists in eco-sensitive zones. Number 3. Adopt the new South Wales L&D court model where judges have specialized environmental law degrees. Number 4. Create a permanent environmental investigation agency under NGT to conduct independent audits and down raids. Coming to the issues due to municipality of multi coming to the issues due to multiplicity of commissions. Number 1. Overlapping jurisdiction lead to procedural chaos. Number 2. Forum shopping. Example, bounced petition between NCM and NHRC. Number 3. Financial wastage. Operating operating separate secretariats, chairperson and staff. Number 4. Toothless tiger syndrome. Number 5. Staffing and vacancy crisis. Example, over 40% of members posts in NCM and NCST vacant. Number 5. Information silos. Commissions rarely share their complaint management systems, leading to duplication of data and evidence. Next, dilution of accountability. Next, executive patronage. Multiplicity provides more posts for retired bureaucrats, turning independent bodies into